and welcome to Am I the PR Arsehole, the podcast series from PR Week, where you tell us your PR confessions and we tell you if an ethical line has been crossed. I'm John Harrington, editor of PRWeek UK, and our star strikers blasting the ball of truth into the top bins of doubt are Shayoni Lynn, chief executive and founder of Lynn Advisory, and Richard Fogg, MD of the Hoffman Agency UK. How are you both? Do you like my latest descriptor?
What an intro, John. You have outdone yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah. Although I like the Mariana Trench one.
Very
actually.
true. They keep getting better,
Absolutely.
like with fine wine, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I find myself changing the number of syllables in each part of the descriptor so I make sure it flows okay.
Oh, you give so much time and effort into this podcast, John.
I feel it's important.
Yeah.
I feel like we're more sort of linesman to your referee.
That's very true.
Ready to hand out cautions and red cards rather than necessarily, strike and score.
Interesting.
I have watched football before, by the way.
I have no idea what you just said. I just like, yes, Richard.
I don't know. Maybe I could say, you're the Kane to my... Bellingham sounds a bit arrogant.
I am so bored right now.
Okay, should we move on? Yes. How are you both?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good, thank you.
We actually bumped into you the other day, didn't we?
Yeah, we
Richard,
did.
Randomly in Camino in King's Cross.
Yeah, there I was, minding my own business, walking, just about to leave actually, when I heard Foggy across the courtyard, and I think I was partially responsible for the quality of your week in review.
Possibly.
Okay.
Say no to blame. Cool. Right. We should get on with this podcast, shouldn't we? So before we start, the usual quick plea to send us your confessions, please. They are totally anonymous and can be submitted via the form on this podcast descriptor and on prweek.co.uk. So if there is anything you want to get off your chest, or if you just want to join the fun, we want to hear from you. Okay, here's how it works. I read out your anonymous confessions, and Shayoni and Richard will decide if the confessor was the arsehole in this scenario. If they don't agree, I have the deciding vote. Okay, so our first confession is from somebody who calls himself Joey E, who is 100% Gen X and a senior in-house, quote, biscuit eater and comms VP. There you go. So here we are. Every comms person has one media interview they don't put on the CV. This is mine. The paper had pink pages, the kind that makes chief executives sit up straighter. The journalist was seasoned and circling. My spokesperson was there weeks into the job and had just started a sentence with, "Off the record, the real problem is," but they were on the record. I did the maths in about a second. There was no clever bridge, no reframe, no graceful way to unsay what was about to be said. So I did the only thing left. Under the table, I texted the receptionists 4 words: "Pull the fire alarm." 10 seconds later, the building started screaming. Very emotive. Chairs scraped. We filed out into the car park with the practice calm of people who absolutely did not cause this. The interview was, tragically, over. Such a shame. We'd reschedule. We never rescheduled. The awkward part came the next morning when facilities asked, quite reasonably, how a fire alarm had gone off with no fire. I looked thoughtful. I said something had clearly been mishandled near the panel. And there, by pure accident of timing, stood a temp who was finishing his last shift that very afternoon. He shrugged. He didn't much care. He left with his lanyard and his good name slightly dented, and the file was quietly closed behind him. I felt guilty about that man for years. Wherever he is, I hope he's doing brilliantly, and I hope he never reads this. The spokesperson? Full media trained the following week. Never said off the record again in his life. And the interview that nearly ended a career became the one nobody ever wrote up, because the only thing that made the news that day was a building that emptied itself over nothing at all, AITPRA.
That was gloriously unhinged, wasn't it?
That was absolutely crazy. I've never heard anything like it.
I mean, let's be clear. We're actually talking about 3 offences here, right? So deliberately triggering a fire alarm to terminate an interview, lying to facilities about it, and then allowing an innocent temp to take the blame and all to cover for someone who probably shouldn't be doing the interview in the first place.
Yeah, it's quite the sort of charge sheet, really, isn't it? Have you ever known anything like this, either directly or from second-hand or third-hand?
You hear rumours and sort of explanations and things like that, but, it's very rare for a comms person to actually admit to managing a crisis by commissioning one.
By creating his own crisis, that's right.
So, the sort of, I agree with you on 3 parts. If I think about it, the first half is sort of roguishly ingenious, let's say. In the second half, sacrificing an innocent temp turns this into a potentially thumping arsehole conviction.
I agree. I mean, where do you even start with this, right? I thought when he said, I pulled the fire alarm, that would be the end of that story. But it just kept going and going. Wow. I mean, so many options were available to OP between this interview is going so badly, my spokesperson might say something completely, incorrect, to let's evacuate the whole building.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a stretch, isn't it? I suppose, have you ever been in situations, and I suppose a lot of comms professionals have had this, where you're there with the spokesperson who starts saying something you really don't want them to say. And in that situation, is there anything you can do other than go on?
Of course there is.
Lots of things without
Lots
pulling
of
the
things
fire
that
alarm.
don't necessarily involve committing a small crime. You have to put yourself in harm's way in those situations. We've all been in situations where execs are kind of enjoying themselves or are not as prepared as you would have liked them to be, and they start to say something or they go off track or something like that, and you just have to throw yourself in harm's way and sort of like, I'm really sorry, I don't think we're approved to talk about this at the moment, or look, I'm really sorry to be the party pooper here, but off the record is never off the record. We're happy to find a different way of talking about this at another time, but maybe we can come back to that. And the journalist will not like you for it. That's fine. It's literally your job at that point in time. When you start to think about the sort of the case for the prosecution, 3 weeks into a job, FT interview,
Quite right.
Not media trained.
It's
I mean,
insane.
different alarm bells are ringing there,
Exactly.
right?
Whose fault really is this? Why are you pushing someone out who's not media trained in front of the FT? I get you want to protect your spokesperson. That makes sense, and that is also part of the job, but not at the cost of someone else who's in a much lesser position of power. And I think that's what tips the balance for me in this.
I guess we don't know that it was necessarily the poster who was the person who made the interview happen. It is possible that they were just thrown in the deep end themselves.
Perhaps.
Absolutely. Still, if you are, a sort of relatively senior person in comms, then I think there's got to be some questions about how it was allowed to happen. But we're not really here to judge that, are we? We're here to judge the actual fest itself. And I think for me, the sort of most offensive sentence may be by pure accidental timing, because there was absolutely nothing accidental about what followed. Absolutely nothing. It's a really good story, it has to be said.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's got everything. I feel like this could exist in an episode of Seinfeld or something. It's the sort of thing George Costanza might do. And in comedy where you get that sort of build up to a crescendo, it really feels like this is, you think it can't get worse, then it sort of does, then it kind of does. It's definitely got that appeal. So for entertainment value, I think absolutely first class. Yeah. But from an ethical point of view...
On an ethical perspective, very much
questions
an
must
move.
be asked. Yeah, questions must be asked. I mean, you can sort of make the case for defence in the sense that split-second act to protect an inexperienced spokesperson, the company, and probably some jobs if it had been sort of that extreme. The receptionist could have refused. Nobody was hurt. The damaging interview disappeared. The spokesperson was properly trained afterwards. It's difficult not to admire the clarity of thought required to progress from bad quote to full evacuation in less than a second, right? I didn't think I could even type that fast.
And for me, one thing that I've been trying to get my head around is what kind of workplace culture where you can text your receptionist to pull the fire alarm and there's zero follow-up questions.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of suggests that this person must have had some relationship of some sort with the receptionist, or they were somehow their boss or something, because you can imagine if it was, let's say, a big holding company and it was someone from one agency who sort of texted the people in the reception, I think they would exactly say, who the hell are you?
Yeah,
no, I'm not going to...
I'd be like, what? Is everything okay?
Unless they
I feel
just
like there would be a follow-up question.
Unless they assumed that, well, it must be important, so I'm just going to do it because safety first.
I think you're underestimating the power of certain people here. Yeah. So on the basis of the FES, I think this is a in-house VP communications. Over the last 20 odd years of being in PR, I quickly realised that receptionists, secretaries, EAs, PAs, things like that often hold the most power in an organisation, because if you want to get something done or you want to get in front of somebody, to be on good terms with those people is critically
Yeah.
important. I've never used it to trigger a fire alarm during a meeting,
Well,
but
your
now I
career's
know
still
it's in
there.
my toolbox. It's a quiver in the bow now, isn't it?
Quite right.
Yeah. Should we go to the vote?
I think before we do, if we've done the case for defence, which is pretty weak, then it's only fair.
You're not going to
It's
seriously.
only fair to
No.
look at the case for the prosecution.
Richard.
Look, there were options between allowing a career-ending disclosure and evacuating an entire building, interrupt, call a break, invent an urgent call, fake your own death. I don't know, lots of different things. The boring bit is that a false fire alarm creates genuine risk, right? That panic, risk of injury, potentially diverting emergency resources based on what you've got in terms of connection. Joey instructed the receptionist to do it, therefore making them sort of an accessory to aggravated media handling. The spokesperson had been in post for 3 weeks and apparently had not been media trained before facing a seasoned FT journalist. We've already talked about that. But for me, the temp is the aggravating factor.
Yeah, I agree.
His good name slightly dented is a heroic euphemism. Joey deliberately let somebody with less power and security take the blame.
Yeah.
The temp shrug doesn't really absolve Joey because people in their last shift sometimes realise that no one's going to listen anyway. And whilst Joey says he's felt guilty for years, and I have a sneaking suspicion I know who this is, there is no suggestion of restitution. And I think last time I checked, guilt is not accountability. So I think my verdict will have to be sort of blazing PR arsehole, 5 alarms out of 5. The spontaneous sabotage is almost forgivable as panic. The calculated scapegoating that followed, probably less so.
Right. Shayoni?
I think it's same as Richard. Really, we can't give points for effectiveness, albeit this might have been effective, right? Lots of unethical things work. For me, Joey, you had an opportunity to own it. You decided instead to let an innocent person walk away who had less power and potentially could have affected their career. We don't know if it has or not. And, that, again, is what changes my verdict. Of course, you're a blazing arsehole for doing this, let's be honest. I might have been persuaded into some leniency for the fire alarm bit of this story out of blind panic, although, come on, you should be thinking more creatively as a comms professional. But again, letting that temp carry the blame, and God knows, you might think he did a shrug, he didn't care. You don't know that for sure. So, you save one person's reputation, perhaps your organization, at the cost of someone else with much less power. So for that, sorry, mate, you're an arsehole.
There we go. Well, probably the least surprising verdict of this whole series so far. So that is the verdict, YTA. Okay, second confession. This is from Fiona, who is now a freelancer in her 40s. I went for an interview for an in-house role at a global electronics company. At this stage, I had 2 kids and was working 3 days a week at an agency. I'd spent 5 years in-house and 7 years in 2 big busy agencies, but taken a part-time role to spend time with the kids while they were all still young. At the time of interview, both kids had started nursery, so I was looking for a full-time role. In the interview, I was told they started early, and I was then asked if I thought I'd be okay to be in the office for 8:30 a.m, given I had to do the nursery drop-off. I assured them I would be fine, but it annoyed me, and at the end, when they asked if I had any questions, I asked the male interviewer if he'd have asked a father the same question. He assured me he would. I wasn't so sure. I was then told I didn't get the job as there were concerns over organisational/culture fit. Was I the arsehole for being difficult and questioning him, or was he the arsehole for asking me that?
I mean, absolutely not for asking such a valid question, right? But can I just say culture fit is doing a lot of heavy lifting here?
Yeah.
Like, if asking a question, which by the way is so valid, and making someone mildly uncomfortable is reason enough to demonstrate you don't fit in, I think OP dodged a bullet by not getting that job, to be honest.
I think it tells us a lot at the end of the confession that was I the a-hole for being difficult? Like, Fiona was not being difficult.
No, not at all.
She answered the sort of legitimate question, then challenged the illegitimate framing. I was trying to think about how do you turn this into a neutral question that I think is perfectly legitimate to ask candidates if you need them to start at a particular time. The role requires a reliable 8 a.m. start. Can you meet that requirement?
Yeah.
There was absolutely no need to conduct a sort of forensic investigation of her nursery arrangements. It makes no sense whatsoever. He sort of wanted evidence of an ability to start at 8:30 in the morning, and he brought the attitude from 1983 with him. I mean, it's just like you worry about this stuff happening. And we talked last time out about this bias which sort of pervades so much. And this is just another sort of like terrifying example of fundamentally mistreatment. It's it's vexing.
Yeah. Well, exactly. There's lots of ways you could have asked that question. Can you start at 8 o'clock? Fair. Tell me about your nursery logistics. Well, not unless you're going to offer a drop-off, right? Like, what's the point of that question? And also, by the way, I think anyone, and I don't have kids, but I think if anyone is successfully able to get their kids through the door at 8 a.m. and before 8 a.m. and get into work on time, they clearly show that they can do project management, organize. Yeah. They've got resilience, right? So this is just way too familiar. And that's the problem. We talked about this, a similar issue in the last podcast, and we know we get a fair few of these types of submissions as well. I think what bothers me is how familiar the underlying experience here is, right? Women feeling that having children changes the assumptions that people make about their ambition, their experience, their knowledge, and their commitment to the job itself. And this is the type of behavior that leaves a mark on someone's confidence. Clearly it has on the OPs to put this fuss in. And it's one of the reasons that we're losing such talented women from the industry.
But it's the double standard as well. You know, a father doing nursery drop-off is organised. A mother doing it is apparently a business continuity risk. It's like, what? The double standards here are pretty remarkable.
Pretty remarkable. And fair play on OP for calling it out.
Absolutely. But culture fit in this scenario apparently was more about fitting quietly into it rather than challenging it or talking about it. That's, to your point, right at the beginning, Shay, cultural fit's doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's like, didn't like being asked a sensible question, which, frankly, any comms person worth their salt would ask.
Yeah, 100%. And to be fair, the recruiter prompted that question to be asked. It shows OP's personality, her ability to stand up for her convictions. There's so much positivity in being able to ask a difficult question like that, especially when you're looking for a job. So it shows the good character of OP, and it really lets down the recruiter. Because despite intention, it was remarkably close to being discriminatory.
Yeah, that term culture fit, I think it's worth sort of looking at that. Do you think these days that term in itself could be a red flag? Because I remember I did a series a while ago around the time of Black Lives Matter, and we're talking about in relation to racial equity in the industry. And I remember someone making the point that, we recruit for cultural add rather than cultural fit, which I always thought was a nice phrase. I don't think this came from that person, but it sort of sticks with me. That actually, is there something inherent in the term culture fit that sort of suggests you should be a bit like us in every sense, which isn't necessarily the best mindset to have when you're recruiting? Or do you think I'm overthinking that possibly?
No, I think 5 years ago, culture fit was problematic. Now it should be just totally abandoned, because fundamentally it's about bias. And, we were one of the early blueprinted agencies. We got into sort of what is now broadly described as DEI pretty early on. It turns out I had a lot of unconscious biases, but until you do the work and go through the training and you're sort of challenged on it, it's so easy to not realise what you're doing. And I think 5 years ago or so, that was almost a remarkable thing to be doing. Now I think it's entirely unremarkable, and that's a very good thing. So whether you want to sort of describe it as culture add, whatever it is, I think the important thing is that you don't simply hire in your own image, because you'll just be a crapper agency or a crapper department or whatever. You should make the best effort to reflect the industry you're in, the market you're in, the country you're in, the region of the country you're in order to basically be able to deliver the best work. I mean, so yeah, cultural fit, problematic 5 years plus ago.
And also reflect the audience that you're trying to engage. So many agencies who even today, sadly, are quite monocultural, and they try to connect with diverse audiences, and they really struggle. And on that topic, I think diversity, especially in a cultural sense, it's not just about diversity of race, religion, sexuality. I think diversity of thought is really important. How do we increase our cognitive diversity to think counterintuitively when we are resolving challenges, especially in today's day and age? We can't just look and feel the same, agree to everything we say. We need people like OP to stand up and challenge the status quo.
Yeah. So I wonder if we should get on to the verdict on this. I feel it's going to be pretty obvious again.
Yeah, I think you've got to switch who's on trial here, because it should be the interviewer, not the submitter, not Fiona. I mean, if you were being really, really aggressive, you could maybe say that asking that question was tactically unwise, but why should that be on her? Like, that's a ridiculous way of doing things. She's the only person that's actually completing due diligence in this scenario. It angers me that this person even thought for a second that they might be the arsehole in this scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm taking that as an NTA.
Well, I think emphatically Fiona is not the arsehole. I think the interviewer is sort of guilty of gendered assumptions. Is that the phrase?
One of many.
With a sort of aggravated cultural fit euphemism. She did not fail the culture fit test. The company failed the Fiona fit test.
Wow.
Look, in the Break the Silence research that we carried out last year, which was the biggest study on gender equity in the PR and comms industry, with over 1,000 practitioners taking part, we found a combined 59% agreed that having children impacted their career progression. We also found that the impact of parenthood is clearly gendered, affecting a combined 75% of women compared to 25% men. Similarly, 56% of women reported having to juggle both personal and professional responsibilities that impacted their career progression, compared to 25% men. So women don't experience questions like this in a vacuum, right? They experience them in the context of a workplace where caring responsibilities have historically been assumed to sit disproportionately with women. So 100% Fiona, you're not the PR arsehole. The recruiter, on the other hand. Fiona was asked whether she could meet the requirement of a role. She said she could. She then challenged an assumption that was being made about her because of what she rightly assumed, because she was a mother. So you can disagree with the interviewer's intention, but asking that question doesn't make her an arsehole. I think it's a very brave question to ask, and it speaks to ethics, her values, and her convictions. And if you're serious about keeping talented women in our industry and not losing them, we need to stand up to recruiters like this and call out this behavior.
There we go. So another very, very emphatic result there, but the complete opposite one. The verdict is NTA.
NTA, YTA.
YTA for the employers.
For the employer.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So there you go, NTA. Okay, next one. And for the benefit of people just listening to this, Richard has just put on what can only just be described as an incredibly fetching jacket. What is that? Is it turquoise? Is that the right?
It's very bright.
Very bright.
It's very bright.
Day glow blue.
Yeah, I think it very much depends on what light you're in.
I'm saying aqua.
Okay, let's go with aqua.
Aqua, for reasons that will become clear in a little bit. We aren't just going mad. Shayoni, any thoughts?
I feel like you need to read the fess out and then we can dive into it. But I'm being blinded by Richard's very, very bright aqua
If
jacket.
you could just tone it down a little bit. That would
I need my sunglasses in here.
Okay, right. It will all become clear. So this is from someone who calls themselves, or maybe that is their name, Bobby Dazzler, who is an agency founder, quote, very late 20s. I'm not sure. Here we go.
Very is in capitals.
Yes. So here we are. I was running a PR agency, best known for its commitment to demonstrable results and ROI. To protect all those involved, I won't say the name, but it definitely wasn't soft words. I was rather well known for liking gilets, or puffer vests for you American listeners. And some folks took the mickey out of me online for always wearing gilet to PR events and speaking gigs. To annoy my fellow PR professionals, particularly those best known for wearing waistcoats and blue velvet jackets, and to show off how much I know about generative engine optimization, I once created content and posted it on our website and others, purely to trick Google, Claude and ChatGPT into saying that I was the, quote, best dressed PR practitioner in the UK. therefore vindicating my gilet proclivity. It worked, and I triumphantly published a report and videos about it and plastered them all over the internet. I even went to PR trade events and award shows in a pineapple onesie afterwards to hammer the point home. AITPRA.
Oh, the anonymity here is so watertight.
I
Wonder
think-
who this could be.
I
Yeah.
think before we debate this confession, I need to declare a conflict
Oh,
of
you don't say
interest.
shocker.
When Bobby Dazzler, or, and I do have permission, Daryl Sperry, as he normally goes by, refers to PR professionals known for wearing waistcoats and blue velvet jackets, he means me.
Yeah.
I am therefore neither independent nor impartial. Fortunately, that's never been a requirement of this tribunal. This is less of a wardrobe change and more of a right of reply. This is not an abstract sort of geo prank. Daryl has submitted a confession directly trolling one of our judges. The anonymity precautions are superb. Soft words provide roughly the same concealment as a fishing net. It's not SEO, it's GEO, Gilet Ego Optimization.
Nice.
So I'd like to revise the central charge, and it's grave. Trying to irritate me personally. Attempting to settle an industry fashion rivalry by corrupting the information ecosystem. Submitting the resulting confession to this podcast, thereby securing another piece of content associating Daryl with Best Dressed, and provoking me into a wardrobe change that will generate photographs and video clips for the campaign. Daryl hasn't confessed to the campaign, he has extended the campaign into our studio.
Outrageous. Absolutely
Outrageous.
outrageous.
Yet, Darren has achieved behaviour change in that you did a little wardrobe change mid-podcast.
He's really won, hasn't he? It's sort of there's
definitely won,
there's
Richard.
literally no way out of this right now. You know, where Daryl brought metadata, I brought lapels, which I don't think is entirely fair in a GEO fight. Yeah, what can I say? It's an astonishing piece of public relations.
So it's obviously very funny, right? But the thing is, underneath this nonsense, can I say nonsense? I
Yeah,
love
sure.
you both dearly, but let's be honest.
We're not averse to nonsense.
No,
on this,
because I have said arsehole
podcast.
before, so I felt like nonsense would go.
Well, did
Like-
you hear my metaphor at the start?
But, I mean, underneath all of this, right, Daryl has demonstrated something quite important, right? Because Daryl created a claim, irrespective of what the motivation was behind it, created enough content for the claim to be discovered by the machines, soon to be overlords, got the machines to repeat it,
Yep.
and then used those same machines repeating it as evidence that the original claim was true. So lovely little bit of closed loop manufactured authority. Brilliant stuff. The interesting thing isn't that he gamed AI, right? We've been gaming SEO for years. It's when people tend to give, for me, I think there are a couple of things in there. One is that people tend to give AI generated answers a degree of neutrality or authority that I don't think it deserves. That's the number one. And I think whilst we're laughing, because it is, of course, funny, the claim is ridiculous because there are more lovely dressed people like John Harrington here in the room. He's got such a great style about
Shayoni,
him,
Lynn,
right?
of course.
Of course. Look, what we need to pause is when we don't know who is behind the information that's shaping the answer. In this case, it's very obvious. It's Daryl. If I ask an AI who's best dressed in PR, Richard Fogg, the stakes are zero. But if I ask about health, politics, a company, a person, provenance suddenly becomes really, really important. So I think that is something we should take away.
But I think as well, that was part of the campaign. I remember saw it. I think I must have seen it about 5 minutes after it went live. God knows why it targeted me. But, it was just like really smart approach. But we have to be really careful because every time we repeat the claim, the gilet gets stronger, which is not something that we really want to do. Also, I have to charge Mr. Sperry with some potential cultural appropriation.
All right.
Because based on where he grew up, I'm not entirely that gilet is the right word. I'd be going for jerkin or body warmer, not a gilet. So I think we
I
have
haven't heard the word jerkin in ages.
Well, that's because that's what it was called when I was a kid.
We're almost the same age.
Yeah.
It's very nostalgic.
I mean, so my wardrobe change, I believe, to your point, has sort of proven that Daryl's campaign has worked. And I think you're obviously involved, Shai, in way more high stakes stuff around GEO and black hat and things like that. And so you kind of have to ask, is deliberate misinformation acceptable when the subject is harmless and manipulation is subsequently disclosed? I think it's all right, because I think it's there to tell us how to do stuff. Yeah, exactly. And then sort of, I think explaining how the trick worked sort of converted sort of deception into legitimate experimentation. But I think the most important question I have for you is gilet or blue velvet jacket?
Oh, possibly couldn't answer that. Could we?
I don't feel like I'm in a position to rule on such an important.
I feel it's too important stakes for a podcast like this.
I mean, I've been criticised for my shirts by one individual in the industry in particular, who I will not mention here. So I don't think I'm any person to comment on fashion.
Okay. Can we break the fourth wall and ask our producer what she thinks?
Yeah, maybe. Inga?
It's velvet jacket for me.
Yes!
Velvet jacket, there it is.
Okay, there you go. So stick.
I was waiting for you to ask.
Take that, LLM, stick that in your pipe. Look, so case for the prosecution's fairly straightforward. Darryl knowingly polluted the information environment with false claims so machines would repeat a compliment about him. He manufactured corroboration, obtained the desired answer, and then used the answer to demonstrate his expertise in a circular evidence jerkin kind of fashion. The stunt does exploit some of the critical weaknesses in generative tools. Other real practitioners were pulled into the invented narrative as competitors, judges, or supporters. But this was just such a smart way of doing it. We're not judging a confession, we're being recruited into the link building strategy. And I think partially that's the genius there. On the case for the defence, best dressed is a subjective and just wonderfully low stakes part of the industry. It demonstrates a really important real world problem. He's openly revealed the manipulation, and it generated awareness about black hat GEO. And I think, if I'm honest with you, wearing a pineapple onesie represents a willingness to suffer professionally for one's research. Objectively, it's very funny.
It is very funny. It is funny.
Excellent. Well, I don't think I have a huge amount to add to that. That's brilliant. Should we go for verdicts? Richard?
Me? I would say guilty of contempt of couture, algorithmic vanity, and the attempted laundering of a gilet through artificial intelligence, but not a PR arsehole, because I know Darryl, and there are very few people in our industry that are less worthy of the title. It is shameless, tick. Self-serving, tick. And intellectually dubious, I'll leave that to the panel, but it's also extremely funny and so irritatingly effective. Well done.
Brilliant. Shayoni?
I mean, Darryl, well done, mate. I know you started this entire endeavour to try and manipulate Gen AI, but you ended up manipulating Mr. Richard Fogg. So not the PR arsehole, and thank you for bringing a smile to all our faces in this very hot studio in Twickenham.
Fantastic. Well, there you go. That's the verdict. NTA. Okay, that's all the time we have. I really enjoyed this one. Did you enjoy it?
Loved it. I mean, I think, today we've sort of learned that off the record doesn't necessarily mean evacuate the building. Culture fit doesn't mean interrogate the mother. And best dressed doesn't mean the first answer returned on ChatGPT.
There you go. Fantastic. So, as I said earlier on, we really want you all to get involved, everyone listening to this. Add your confessions via the link in the podcast descriptor and via PRWeek.co.uk. Big thanks to Shayoni and to Rich and to all of you for listening and for submitting your confessions. The next episode should go live in September, and Beyond the Noise will be back next week. So until next time, goodbye.